What if the wisest man who ever lived still wasn't wise enough to save himself? He had everything. Wisdom no human had ever possessed. Wealth that made kings of other nations look like beggars. A kingdom that stretched from the Euphrates to the border of Egypt. A temple so glorious that when its doors first opened, the very glory of God filled the room and the priests could not stand to minister. He spoke 3,000 proverbs. He wrote songs that have lasted 3,000 years. The Queen of Sheba traveled across the desert just to hear him speak, and left saying half had not been told her. He was beloved by God from the moment he was born. The prophet Nathan gave him a second name at birth, Jedediah, meaning beloved of the Lord. And yet, by the time he died, he had built altars to demons. His son inherited a kingdom that was about to tear itself in two. His final book, written in the bitterness of old age, opens with one of the saddest sentences in all of Scripture. Meaningless, meaningless. Everything is meaningless. This is not the story of a wicked man. This is the story of a wise man who slowly stopped guarding his heart and lost everything that mattered while keeping everything that didn't. His name was Solomon. This is his story, and it might be a warning meant for someone watching right now. When King David was old and dying, his kingdom was already in turmoil. His older sons were fighting for the throne. Adonijah had already declared himself king without his father's permission. But David had made a promise to his wife Bathsheba years before. The throne would go to her son, to Solomon. So in the closing weeks of his life, David called Solomon to his side. He gave him final instructions, not about politics or strategy or military command, but about something far more important. Be strong, David told him, and show yourself a man. Observe what the Lord your God requires. Walk in obedience to him and keep his decrees and commands. David knew what most fathers learn too late. A son's success is not measured by what he builds, but by who he becomes. Then David died, and Solomon was crowned king. He was somewhere around 20 years old, a young man, untested, inheriting the most powerful kingdom Israel had ever known. In those early days, Solomon's heart was tender toward God. He went to Gibeon, the great high place where the tabernacle still stood, and offered 1,000 burnt offerings on its altar. A staggering act of worship, an entire night spent making sacrifices to the God of his father. And that night, God appeared to him in a dream. It is one of the most extraordinary moments in the Old Testament. The Lord asked Solomon a question that would expose what was really in his heart. Ask for whatever you want me to give you. Anything. The creator of heaven and earth offering a blank check to a young king. Wealth, power, long life, vengeance on his enemies. Anything. Solomon's answer revealed why God had chosen him. O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David. But I am only a little child and do not know how to carry out my duties. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. Wisdom. He asked for wisdom, and God's response was breathtaking. Because you haven't asked for long life or wealth for yourself, nor have you asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice. I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be. But God did not stop there. Moreover, I will give you what you haven't asked for, both wealth and honor, so that in your lifetime you will have no equal among kings. And then came the warning, and if you walk in obedience to me, and keep my decrees and commands, as David your father did, I will give you a long life. If. It was the smallest word in the entire blessing, but it would become the most important word in Solomon's life. In the days that followed, Solomon's wisdom became famous across the ancient world. 2 women came before him, both claiming the same baby. There were no witnesses, no evidence, just 2 desperate mothers and 1 living child. Solomon listened to them both, then made a decision that has echoed through history. Bring me a sword, cut the baby in 2 and give half to each. 1 woman agreed. The other screamed, "No, give the child to her. Please don't kill him." Solomon's eyes filled with knowing. Give the baby to her. She is his mother. And all Israel heard of the king's judgment, and they were in awe of him, because they saw that he had the wisdom of God to administer justice. His reputation spread to every nation. Kings sent emissaries to learn from him. He spoke 3,000 proverbs and wrote 1,005 songs. He described plant life from the cedar of Lebanon to the hyssop growing out of the wall. He taught about animals, birds, reptiles, and fish. People came from every kingdom to hear the wisdom of Solomon, sent by all the kings of the world who had heard of his wisdom. But the crown jewel of his reign was still to come. For 7 years, Solomon worked on the building that his father David had longed to build, but had been forbidden from constructing, the temple of the Lord. 30,000 laborers, 70,000 carriers, 80,000 stonecutters in the hills, cedar from Lebanon shipped in by sea, gold beyond counting, every inner wall overlaid with pure gold, the cherubim spreading their wings across the most holy place, the bronze sea, the golden lampstands, the altar of incense, every detail crafted to reflect the glory of the God who had chosen Israel. And when it was finished, Solomon stood before the gathered nation, raised his hands, and dedicated it. But will God really dwell on earth? He prayed. The heavens, even the highest heaven, cannot contain you. How much less this temple I have built. He prayed for forgiveness. He prayed for the foreigners who would one day come from far away to know God's name. He prayed for famine, plague, captivity, and return. And when he finished praying, fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offerings. The glory of the Lord filled the temple so completely that the priests could not enter. And all the people fell on their faces and worshipped, saying, "He is good, his love endures forever." It was the high point of Solomon's life, and what came next would never quite reach it again. God appeared to Solomon a second time. He told him he had heard his prayer. He had consecrated the temple. His eyes and his heart would always be there. And then he repeated, slowly, deliberately, the same warning he had given before. "But if you or your descendants turn away from me and do not observe the commands and decrees I have given you, and go off to serve other gods and worship them, then I will cut off Israel from the land I have given them, and I will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name." The warning came twice. God does not waste words. When he warns a man twice about the same thing, it is because he sees what is already beginning in the man's heart. The Queen of Sheba came from the southern reaches of Arabia, bringing camels loaded with spices, large quantities of gold, and precious stones. She came to test Solomon with hard questions, and when she had seen everything, his wisdom, his palace, the food on his table, the order of his officials, the burnt offerings he made at the temple, the scripture says there was no more breath in her. "The report I heard in my own country about your achievements and your wisdom is true," she said. "But I didn't believe these things until I came and saw with my own eyes. Indeed, not even half was told me." Solomon was at his peak. He had everything any man could want. And that, strangely, devastatingly, is where his story begins to unravel. The law of Moses had given the kings of Israel specific warnings. A king must not acquire great numbers of horses. He must not take many wives, or his heart will be led astray. He must not accumulate large amounts of silver and gold. Solomon did all three. It happened slowly. So slowly that he probably did not feel it happening at all. That is how spiritual drift always begins. Not with a single great rebellion, but with 1,000 small compromises that each seem small on their own. He began making political marriages, alliances with surrounding kingdoms, sealed by taking the daughters of foreign kings as wives: Egypt, Moab, Ammon, Edom, Sidon, the Hittites. Each marriage brought peace, trade, prosperity. Each one also brought something else into Solomon's palace: a new god, a new altar, a new shrine. His wife from Sidon worshipped Ashtoreth. His wife from Moab worshipped Chemosh. His wife from Ammon worshipped Moloch, the god whose worship demanded child sacrifice. At first, perhaps, Solomon told himself these were just personal matters, that his foreign wives needed places to worship the gods of their own homelands, that this was simply diplomatic, that his own heart still belonged to the Lord. But the scripture is brutally honest about what was actually happening. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, not fully devoted. The wisest man who ever lived, slowly, quietly, divided his own heart. He built high places for Chemosh on the hill east of Jerusalem. He built one for Moloch. He did this for all his foreign wives, who burned incense and offered sacrifices to their gods. He had 700 wives of royal birth, 300 concubines, and the man who once spent the night offering 1,000 sacrifices to the Lord at Gibeon now offered his own incense at altars built for the gods of nations God had told Israel to drive out. The Lord became angry with Solomon. Twice God had appeared to him personally. Twice God had warned him about this exact thing. So God spoke to him one more time, but this time it was not in a dream of blessing. It was a word of judgment. Since this is your attitude, and you haven't kept my covenant and my decrees, which I commanded you, I will most certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates. Nevertheless, for the sake of David your father, I will not do it during your lifetime. I will tear it out of the hand of your son. Mercy. Even in the judgment, God showed mercy, for David's sake. But the kingdom Solomon had built, the kingdom God had given him at 20 years old, would not survive his death intact. Adversaries began rising against him: Hadad the Edomite, Rezon of Damascus, and from within his own court, Jeroboam, a man God would later raise up to tear 10 tribes away from Solomon's son. The peace that had defined Solomon's reign began to crack at the edges, and somewhere in those final years, an old king sat down with a pen in his trembling hand and wrote a book of regrets, a book of confessions, a book of a man looking back over a life that had everything and now felt like nothing. It begins with the word that haunts the entire book: hevel, translated as meaningless, but the Hebrew literally means vapor, breath, mist that vanishes when you try to grab it. I have seen all the things that are done under the sun. All of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind. I undertook great projects. I built houses for myself and planted vineyards. I made gardens and parks. I amassed silver and gold. I acquired male and female singers. and a harem as well, the delights of a man's heart. I became greater by far than anyone who had lived before me in Jerusalem. In all this, my wisdom stayed with me. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done, and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. This is the voice of a man who built a kingdom and lost a relationship. But Ecclesiastes does not end in despair. Solomon, in his old age, perhaps in his final months, wrote a closing sentence that may be the truest thing he ever said. Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. The wisest man who ever lived spent a lifetime gathering everything the world had to offer, only to write at the end that none of it mattered without God. We do not know exactly how Solomon died, or whether he fully returned to the Lord at the end. The scripture does not give us a clean ending. He died after reigning 40 years. His son Rehoboam took the throne, and within months the kingdom split in two, just as God had warned. The temple still stood, the Proverbs were still recited, the Queen of Sheba's account still circulated through the nations, but the man himself, the one God had named Beloved, had become a cautionary tale. The story of Solomon is not really about Solomon at all. It is about a warning that no amount of wisdom can save a man whose heart is not guarded. Solomon did not lose his faith in a single moment. He did not wake up one day and choose to worship demons. He drifted, one marriage at a time, one political compromise at a time, one small altar at a time. Each step felt manageable on its own. None of them looked like apostasy in the moment, but added together over decades, they became the story of a man who built a temple to God and then built altars to demons on the hill outside the city he had dedicated to the Lord. Proverbs, the very book Solomon wrote, contains this verse. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. He wrote those words, he warned others, and he did not heed his own counsel. This is the warning at the center of his story. Wisdom is not a destination, it is a discipline. The same man who wrote Proverbs wrote Ecclesiastes, one in the strength of his youth, the other in the bitterness of his age. The difference between them is what happened in the middle. Compromise, drift. The 1,000 small choices that no one notices until they have already cost everything. Jesus would later put it this way: what good is it for a man to gain the whole world, yet forfeit his soul? Solomon gained the whole world, and he very nearly forfeited the only thing that mattered. Perhaps you are watching this from inside a season of prosperity. Things are going well. Career is climbing. Relationships are full. You have built things you are proud of. And somewhere quietly in the back of your spirit, you know that you have not been guarding your heart the way you used to. The morning prayers have grown shorter. The compromises have grown easier. The voice that used to convict you has grown quieter. Not because God has stopped speaking, but because you have stopped listening as carefully. This story is for you. Solomon's tragedy is not that he sinned. Every person in Scripture sinned. His tragedy is that he had every reason to know better, every warning anyone could be given, and he still drifted. But here is the hope buried in his story. We are told he wrote Ecclesiastes at the end of his life, which means somewhere in those final years, something in him turned around. He sat down and wrote, "Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. It is not too late to return. It has never been too late." The God who appeared to Solomon twice would have appeared a third time if Solomon had only turned around and sought him. That same God is asking the same question of you tonight. Not about the size of your kingdom, not about the wisdom of your decisions, not about the gold or the alliances or the achievements. Just, is your heart fully devoted to me? If the answer is no, if you feel the drift in your own spirit, then this is your moment. Tear down the altars, the ones no one knows about, the ones you built quietly when no one was watching, the ones you told yourself were small. Return to the God who named you beloved before you ever built anything in this world. Your kingdom will end. His will not. And the only wisdom that ever truly mattered was knowing the difference. If this video moved you, please consider subscribing and sharing it with someone who might be in a season of quiet drift. These videos take a great deal of time and prayer to create, and every subscriber helps us reach more people. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you.